What's going on, everybody? I am checking in on everyone here. Just want to see how everyone's doing. It's been a few days since I've popped on, probably since last week sometime. And I'm just going to wait for a couple people to pop in. We've got a call with Nolan coming up soon. As many of you know, Nolan is someone who's been on the channel before. What's up? I just saw a few people come on. We're about to, in about an hour. Yeah, about an hour. We've got a call with Nolan. Nolan has been, actually, it's 30 minutes. Nolan has been someone that has been on the channel before, an audience member. We're going to talk to him. I've got a bunch of recordings right now that I need to upload onto YouTube for everyone with audience guests. We did one with Griswold Grimm last week. I just talked to a couple other people. I actually just had a conversation with Janie Amani this morning, who has a YouTube channel, and we're going to do some collaborations in the future. So I'm looking forward to that. But I just wanted to check in with everyone since I hadn't popped on live for about a week or so. And yeah, so I hope everyone's doing well. And I just got back from California. We did a Jungian psychology intensive. We focused on the psychology of mythology and classical stories. And then we also talked about archetypes. And we looked at archetypes from a Hinduism lens, which I'd never done before. And that was really fascinating. It is fascinating to see how the Western psyche is fundamentally different than that of Eastern cultures, and how we have these different a priori psychic structures that are priming our brains for different images, different mythologies, different ways of looking at life. And Jung wrote this book called The Psychology of Kundalini Yoga, I believe. And he talks about the differences between the Western and the Eastern psyche. It's a really interesting read. I'd recommend it. I just had this great conversation with Janie Amani. Janie, what's up, Gloff? It's been so long, man. Dude, I've been missing you. Gloff and I used to do, we did a few podcasts on my old channel, and we always have fun talking to each other. I'd love to talk to you again soon, man. So send us an email. I've been waiting for that. But anyway, so I just talked to Janie Amani. Janie's awesome. She's got her own YouTube channel. It's pretty successful. Go check it out. It's called Emotional Awareness with Janie Amani, I believe. And we're going to do some content collaboration in the future. She's got her own practice with clients, successful business, successful on YouTube. She's got a Facebook page. She's really cool. She's got this training through Brene Brown, I believe, Daring Greatly, maybe, something like that. But that was a really fun conversation. And I've missed the YouTube channel since I've been so busy over the last week. So I just wanted to check in on everyone and see what's up. Mercury and Nolan and I are about to have another conversation, and that'll be recorded and posted up here as well. Gloff, do you want to come on soon, man? Are you done with your busyness? Is everything copacetic at this point? Because it would be great to chat again. And oh yeah, Paul Vanderklay just posted our conversation with him that was also posted on our channel here this morning. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see what people think about it and get some more feedback. Kloff says, I'd love to come on, just moved houses, so that's kept me busy. Gotcha, dude. Yeah, it'd be great to chat again. It's funny that you, like, I don't know, I think we met like a year ago, and it's crazy how much has changed since then. Like, I was just doing Soul Tree, and that was fun. And you were getting started on your podcast, Gloffcast, on YouTube. Check it out, everyone. And we started chatting, and we became friends. And Andrew gave Mercury and I the channel after I was grinding it out on my other channel for a year. By the way, doing anything on YouTube is hard. Like, making any sort of success or getting any sort of listener base whatsoever is difficult. So go subscribe to Gloff's channel. He does it as much as he can. He's a really busy guy, but he has a great voice for radio. You should hear it. He sounds like he was born to be on a broadcast, and he talks about some interesting things. But yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and for somebody who has been doing YouTube for years, it can be hard just to get a couple thousand subscribers, let alone getting constant views and support. I mean, it's a grind, and there's no guarantees. And even as lucky as Mercury and I have been getting this channel, my brother's calling me. I'm going to answer the phone just to mess with him. Dude, you're on the broadcast, man. What's going on?
I just saying, I was hoping that we could do a podcast later today. I have an hour. I could be at your place. We could do it.
Come over. We'll maybe we'll go live later today. That'd be fun.
Are you gonna be home all day?
Yeah, dude. I'll be home. We're about to have a podcast with Nolan. He's an audience member, and we'll record that for an hour or so. And then I've got some chores and stuff to do, but we could definitely do something. 4?
Okay. Yeah.
Hold on a second. Just stay on the phone for a second. 4 o'clock. Let me check my calendar. Come on. What the? Why? What? Sorry, everyone. Hold on a second. Yeah, that's fine. Come on over. I'll see you in a bit. You have any caller topics? I'm taking calls. We're taking calls live on the airwaves.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about if Bigfoot is real or not? Sounds like a really good topic.
Bigfoot. Yeah, that is a good topic, actually. Is Bigfoot real? The Yeti, the Bigfoot. What's going on there? Anything else, bro, before I hang up on you? And I'll dive into that.
I'm going to save it for this afternoon.
All right. See you, man.
See ya.
Bigfoot's, I was watching Joe Rogan. He talks about Bigfoot sometimes. I don't have any opinions really on Bigfoot. He's an interesting phenomena. What if it's a she though? Maybe it's not gendered at all. Maybe it's just this, kind of mix of things that never been created or seen before. We don't know. It's a mystery, man. But Gloff, yeah, go ahead and shoot me an email, and I'd love to do a recording with you. I love doing recording with the audience, and not just to me, it's more than audience, right? Like, we have such a respect for the people out there. We view you as people who also have something to offer. I think a lot of times when you are a podcaster or YouTuber or doing this sort of stuff, it's easy to start thinking like, there's like this thing that's like, I'm up here and other people are down there. And you see that with a lot of YouTubers where it's almost like this hierarchical setup. But I don't like that, because all the people out there, like Peterson says, treat everyone like they know something you don't. They might actually have something to offer. I like that a lot. And I'm always surprised by what our listeners have to offer. And I always get something out of it. Definitely not Chris just said, I just saw you did a video with Paul. Yeah, I really like Paul. I really like Paul a lot. His laughter and his presence is so loving and fun to be around. He makes me more interested in Christianity. I'm not particularly a Christian myself, but I guess you could say I'm a Christian because I'm a Westerner, and, by sheer osmosis of just being constantly immersed in the culture that has been born out of the Judeo-Christian ethic, it's kind of hard to not be somewhat of a Christian. But as far as like proactively practicing a religion, not necessarily considering myself that. But I also have a deep respect for the tradition. And I also think that, I don't know, I'm weird, man. I kind of like, like sometimes I'll do my prayer practices. I'll pray to Christ, and then I'll, pray to some other figures. I'm kind of like this mix of different things. But I do believe that there is this higher power in the universe. And I don't necessarily know exactly how to describe it, but I just believe it's something that's good. It's light. It's bigger than myself. It's a higher organizing principle. You can't you can't qualify it. You can't define it. You can just point to it. Like, it's the finger pointing to the moon is not the moon. That ancient, I think it's a Chinese proverb. So that's kind of where I stand with these things. But I like that Gloff and I talked about Gnosticism one time. And one thing I do like is experiencing things from a phenomenological viewpoint, touching something, having an experience. To me, that's what spirituality is all about. It's feeling connected, feeling in alignment, knowing something through the experience of dealing with it, of interacting with it. So that's a phenomenological viewpoint. And to me, that's what's real. Is like, what's real is the experiences that I have, and everything else is conceptual and abstract. And who knows? Like, I just don't know. I don't know what else is going on. I just know what my experience is. And to me, experience is a religious thing. Experience, Peterson says, your religion is what you act out. So whatever landscape that I live on, it's certainly a landscape of experiencing different phenomena. And for me, some of that phenomena is deeply meaningful and spiritual. And I sometimes interact with forces I don't understand. And whether it's in my imagination or if it's an actual real thing, I don't know. I just know that it just feels real. It feels impactful. And I think that is enough to go off of. And I do have faith based on those experiences. How much have you read of Jung? I've read quite a bit of Jung. Definitely not Chris, just asked that. Jung is what I study in graduate school. I specialize in Jungian studies. That's my whole program is centered around Jung. I'm in my third quarter right now. It's going really well. I'm reading Ion and hey, Helios. My dog, sorry, he's making some noise. I'm reading Ion and Archetypes of the Collective Unconscious right now. I've also been reading James Hillman and Joseph Campbell and a lot of figures that have been centered around the Jungian community. I'm a big fan of Jung. And yeah, he was kind of a phenomenologist as well. So is Dr. Strachan, who's my primary mentor in psychology. He's a phenomenologist by nature, that we experience life a certain way, and then we can structure our understanding of how to navigate that map, that territory based on that phenomenological experience. And I do think there's value in that because it keeps us grounded with what is, rather than talking about what could be or what might be, or speculating and debating. It's just like, I'm having an experience. This is the nature of my experience. And that was one of the cool things I'm reading about Jung's take on the psyche. It's like, regardless of, what we can objectively, empirically say about the psyche, we can at least know that something's happening. As somebody who has the faculty of perception, I can notice my psyche operating in a particular way. I can notice things arising. Like, where do thoughts come from? Where like random daydreams, random feelings, where do they come from? They just seem to somehow arise. And for Jung, they arise out of the unconscious. They arise out of that, abyss of the unknown, and they make themselves available to us. And he has that great quote: until we make the conscious, the unconscious conscious, it'll direct our life, and we will call it fate. That's kind of his take on things. Is anything that we don't know, anything that is unknown, is fundamentally unconscious. So there's the personal unconscious, which is about our personal private psyche, and then there's the collective unconscious, and it's kind of like this field of being that permeates reality. And we're kind of like, all we can ever do is kind of hope to get close enough to the threshold of it so that we can interact with whatever emerges from it more. But we can never know what's in the unknown because it's not known. And as soon as we know it, it becomes known. So it's no longer unknown. It's very complicated. I'm still sorting my own ideas out as far as that. Dr. Strachan has some different beliefs about it. He doesn't even like the word unconscious. He prefers different language, which is a whole nother topic I could get into. I'm trying to navigate my way intellectually to carve out my own space of understanding here. Strachan's theory of self, soul, spirit is heavily that he takes some things from Jung, like the mandala. Gestalt theory, which he's a Gestalt therapist, which Gestalt therapy was born out of Gestalt theory, presents this idea of the sum of the parts is the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And Jung kind of believed that about what he called the self. The self is the totality of who you are. It's the larger guiding force of your life. And he would draw these mandala paintings, like in the Red Book, and this greater spectrum of reality is born out of this totality somehow. So there's a lot that I'm thinking through at the moment, and trying to, I guess I'm trying to figure out where I stand as a young, somebody who is earnestly wanting to be a philosopher and a deep thinker and have at least some intellectual ability. I'm working on those ideas for myself and testing my own experience against it. And I would say it's the process of continually being forced into humility, because like Peterson says, you constantly learn where your limitations are and you constantly push your edges. And it's a difficult process, because in that process, you have to be somewhat of a fool sometimes. So I'm definitely developing along that pathway. Definitely not. Chris says, is the hero's journey only masculine, or is it the same for both sexes? I've been wondering about the feminine path and looking at our current culture. Yeah, we just did this whole class on the hero's journey, and the teacher, he was awesome. He had worked very closely with Joseph Campbell and James Hillman for years. They're both, obviously, everybody knows Joseph Campbell. James Hillman was also quite a force in Jungian psychology, and they both are best-selling authors. And my instructor from this last couple days, it was a brilliant psychologist. His name was Dr. Jonathan Jung. He's on Wikipedia, Jung with a Y, Young, and he was brilliant, and he was a master of the hero's journey. And we went through all these stories and analyzed it from that perspective. Great psychologist. So let me get at your question here. Is the hero's journey only masculine, or is it different? Well, that's a really tough question, because first we have to tease apart masculine and feminine a little bit. So masculine and feminine are, let's just call them energetic symbols. They're symbols of certain types of spectrums of energy. And they're not limited to gender, but they typically tend to constellate themselves within a specific gender. So like women tend to have more of the feminine and men tend to have more of the masculine, but it's not universal. Like there's always exceptions to the pattern, and we can't over universalize, because then we will misrepresent people who don't fall under that. So I have, for example, I have feminine parts of myself that I'm very close to, that are very important parts of my psyche. And I have masculine parts of myself that are also very important parts of my psyche. So that's the first thing, is we have to figure out the diversity that lives within us, because we're not just one thing. We're many different things, and we have many different subpersonalities, and they all have a different energy, and they might be on the masculine or the feminine spectrum. Is the hero's journey only masculine? No, absolutely not. Is it the same for both the sexes? I don't think it's the same for anybody, but I do think that the go slay the dragon thing obviously is the more masculine path. The more feminine path is, I would say, it's more of a shamanic journey. It's more of a creative inward journey. It's more of a path of loving wisdom and learning through the nurturance and the chaos of the great mother archetype, the power of nature. The masculine path is more about creating order out of chaos, and the feminine path might be more about embracing the chaos and learning how to ride those waves, surf those waves, rather than trying to organize them. They're both necessary, because we need both in our life. Some people are more predisposed to the orderliness and creating order out of the chaos of life, like a businessman, while others are more prone to the exploratory hero's journey, the constant exploration of consciousness. Whether they be pilgrims or travelers or artists and so forth, they tend more towards letting something emerge out of the chaos and letting it be this poetic experience that stands on its own. So that's kind of how I would answer that question. I think everybody's journey is different. Like if everybody has their own hero's journey, then everybody's narrative on that journey, everybody's process on that journey is going to be a little bit unique. But at the end of the day, we all do follow some of these, you could call them archetypal story arcs, that we go through these processes, like the dark night of the soul and the reemergence of wisdom and clarity, and to feel the calling, to have a calling, right? That's the first step of the journey. That's the east. That's the east of, if you look at it from the four directions, the east is the calling, the new light on the horizon. You feel called to go do something. You feel inspired. And so you start preparing. That's the southeast, right? The southeast of the medicine wheel is the preparation. What do I need to pack? What are the details? How am I going to get this thing on the road? And you take the care to prepare. That's also identified with the seasons as well. Springtime, preparing for the summer. And then you get down into the south, and that is when you're doing the detail work. You're in the dirt, you're putting in your time, you're grinding basically in the self. Like you're learning a skill, you're applying the skill, you're doing that, and you're really focused in. And then in the West, you come up again and you start reflecting on what you've learned. And you might even ask, this might be where you have that crisis of identity. Like, who am I? Who am I now? What does this mean about me? And that can be a tough one. That can be a tough one because you just essentially transform something, and now you're coming back up, and you have to basically re-identify yourself and find a new mold that fits you better, a new way of perceiving the world. And then you come up into the north, and that's really wisdom. That's being an elder. That's the winter. That's the end of life. That's whatever, the end of this particular journey that you've been on. And you get up there, and you have a story to tell. You are somebody that has been through something. You have integrated wisdom into your life. You have something to offer society. You have respect amongst your peers. Like, these are all the different kind of narratives that go into it. So, yeah. Definitely not. Chris says, I like the Beauty and the Beast examples Jordan B. Peterson uses. The woman taming the uncivilized, the woman taming uncivilized man, but I can't think of anything else as that for the feminine journey. It seems like in movies we're having female characters play the knight slaying the dragon roles. Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder what a movie where it goes the opposite direction would be. Because the traditional hero is kind of the knight in shining armor that conquers the day, slays the dragon, and reintegrates into society. Mercury, hey buddy, says we should have Pajot to discuss the roles of masculine and feminine with us. That would be fantastic. That would be really a great podcast. I'd love to talk to him. We should reach out to Jonathan Pajot. But yeah, so I think that there's different types of journeys. There's different types of character arcs, right? We have the traditional hero, but then we have the mystic character arc, the seeker, the one who goes to become kind of their character arc is more of becoming the shaman that the hero meets on the road. Mercury and I have talked about this. That's a whole different story. And then we have what does it look like to have a feminine character arc? And I think these are all interesting questions to ask. But yeah, I think that what you're reflecting on is really important, is what does it look like from different archetypal perspectives? What might our character arc look like? One of the helpful things to role play is putting yourself in the journey and feeling, what parts do you identify with? Do you feel like the hero slaying the dragon? Do you feel like the seeker meditating in the mountains? Do you feel like the scholar studying in the library? Like, what sorts of images nourish you? And the ones that really captivate your attention and make you feel inspired and make you feel connected, that's parts of who you are, right? And so that's kind of exploring the images of transformation that might compel you to live up to your potential. So I think it's really important to pay attention to the images that grab you. If it is the knight that slays the dragon, then really pay close attention. What is it about that? Do some active imagination. Have a conversation with that image. Listen to what it has to say to you. Listen to how it might guide you. And then it's your job to figure out how that applies to your life. So that's one way to start really fulfilling your own character arc, is figure out what compels you, what inspires you, what captures your attention. Because you'll notice if you look at a story, there's certain characters that you're interested in more than others. You like ask yourself, why is that? Why am I more interested in Gandalf than I am in Aragorn? Or why am I most interested in Frodo or Galadriel or whatever it would be? Or why do I like Iron Man? Whatever. And that might seem like a silly exercise, right? You might think to yourself, oh, I just like that. That's just who I am. It's just interesting. There's nothing deeper behind that. But that's not really how the psyche works. That's not how our brains function. We project what we are onto the world. That's both good and bad. We are projection machines. We are constantly putting our inner world on the external landscape. And every time we do that, we have the opportunity to learn something about ourselves through that reflective mechanism. And if we pay close attention to the images that we're projecting to the external world, then we have a opportunity to ask, what does that mean about myself? What is this image teaching me about who I am? So if I see somebody that makes me really angry and I have no idea, it's like over the top, out of context, I just see someone and they just irk me. I'm like, what am I learning about myself? I'm not saying that there's no such thing as objective frustration where it's not projecting an image, but typically there is something about me out there that I could learn about myself. And that's like looking in a mirror, essentially. That's how we get to know who we are. That's why mythology is so powerful. That's what's so interesting about astrology. We've essentially projected something about ourselves out onto this sky. That's what mythology is. We're projecting some internal need or truth to the external. And if we if we take that apart a little bit, why do I see it that way? When I started learning to work with clients, one of the things we would do is we'd go out into nature and they would look at a tree or a rock or a canyon or a riverbed, and they would have all these associations. Well, this riverbed reminds me of, my relationship with my significant other, and you see how the river splits and diverges here, and then it comes back together over there, and this is what that means. This is how that's like my life. And it might seem like a silly exercise, but really you're using that landscape to reflect back to you something you need to know about yourself. And then you have this aha moment where you say, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize that was what was going on until I played it out in this landscape out here, and I had this opportunity to learn something about myself. It's really important that we pay attention to our projections. And just one thing that I was reading yesterday, Jung was saying in Ion, his volume 9, second part 2 of the collective works, was how people are very rarely aware of their own projections, and it takes a tremendous amount of moral courage to do so, to create that awareness. And it's very painful because you are essentially separating your reality a little bit. You're parsing things out, and it can be hard. And we don't like to admit these things to ourselves because it's confrontational. It confronts our psyche with something that's difficult to process. I'm going to read Chris M's comments here, and then I'm going to have to hop off because we've got a call with Nolan, and I'll be posting that in the next couple of days if I can. But I'm a little behind because we still got to post Griswold Grimm, which was another audience conversation. So Chris M., what I have noticed is that we can adopt all of those roles during the continual life process of psychological and biological development. I am currently reading The Four in the Crucible by Mircea. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, but I know who this is, Mircea Eliade, and he speaks exactly on the process of projecting the sacred onto the material. Oh, The Forge, excuse me. The Forge and the Crucible. That's fantastic. Actually, Chris, it was so funny. I saw you. So Joe Rogan and what's his name? His buddy, Brian Callen, they posted a clip on the JRE clips, and they quoted Jung. People pronounce it Jung and Jung. I always butcher it, and I'm studying it in grad school. I could do better. I should probably figure out what the professional pronunciation is. I think it's Jung, but I just say Jung because I'm a goofball. But they quoted him and talked about Jung on the channel. I was very pleased with that, and you commented on it, so I thought that was really cool. I saw your comment, Chris, was one of the first comments. I was like, that's one of our subscribers. Oh my God, that's amazing. And your comment had a lot of likes, and I thought that was really cool. So keep on shining, and keep doing your thing, man. That was awesome. And I love your comments. They're always so informative and fun to engage with. So please do keep engaging as much as you feel like it. All right, everyone, I got to hop on with Nolan and Mercury. I owe them my allegiance for my 12:30 p.m. calendar. Thank you so much for tuning in. Andrew Jokum says I pronounce it Jung. I don't know what the hell you guys are. Very young. See ya, everybody. Dust to Dust, I did see that you left a comment on Paul's podcast when you said that you're subscribed, you follow both of our channels. I think that's cool. I do think that we have quite a few listeners that intersect between those two. Thank you so much, everyone. I will be posting a few more things on this channel as soon as possible. See ya.